A California summit between President Joe Biden and Chinese President Xi Jinping has already led to one major diplomatic breakthrough. Pandas could soon be on their way back to the United States. But what else can come from this summit, and what does it mean for the future of U.S.-China relations? So, Tom, the pandas are clearly the most important thing, but beyond that, what else can we expect from this summit?
Well, I think what they've done, Eltham, is put a floor under the deterioration in U.S.-China relations that's really been going on since the Trump administration, beginning in the area of trade. I never believed that Donald Trump was the president, the American president that Americans deserved, but I did believe he was the American president China deserved. There needed to be someone who pushed back on China in the trade realm that we had simply put up with too much for too long. Too many cases where China was not fulfilling its trade obligations under the World Trade Organization and disadvantaging companies. And the evidence of that for me always, and which I would say to Chinese friends and officials, is how did you lose the biggest, most powerful, free, pro-China lobby in America, which was the American business community? And so they got fed up. They were the ones who began to leave, to downsize their China operations. And so that was a real loss for China. It was a policy failure. At the same time, its much more aggressive foreign policy and internal closure under Xi was alienating China's allies, China's neighbors. They are allies, but even more allies today: Vietnam, the Philippines, South Korea, Japan, Indonesia, Australia. China's behavior was isolating it in the region and driving people into our arms. And all that said, Gautam, I think that we've reached kind of a bottom here, and we've put in a floor. That's what this summit was about. They resumed military to military discussions. I'm sure there will be some economic things that will come out of this. And I think that in itself is a good thing. I wish President Xi and President Biden would speak once a month on the phone. We're two big countries. Neither of us can really, fully realize our potential without the other. And so, I'm glad we found a floor. But from China's point of view, I don't think China can realize its full potential when now you have so many Chinese entrepreneurs, young people, voting with their feet, looking to get out. And that's a sign that something is not quite right inside, irrespective of what's going on in the U.S.-China, pathway.
So how much of what we're seeing in this sort of closer ties, or China being more flexible with the United States, is driven by the problems of the Chinese economy, where they seem to be either on the edge of or actually plunging into a pretty severe recession?
Yeah, I think that's certainly part of it, that looking for a foreign power to blame is always there. But I think that, the real problem is China was going in a certain direction. When you were teaching there, it was 2 steps forward, 1 step back, but getting more and more open to the world, and marginally looser and looser inside. I remember the days when I could do a bookstore event, book talk in Beijing. That is way in my past now, so there was a real U-turn. And because of that U-turn, I think China lost a lot of trust with the world, but it lost trust at a really bad time when trust became more important than ever. Trust became more important than ever because as everything became digital, Gotham, everything that was digital and connected, all right, meant you really had to trust the other person on the other side. Is your Chinese-made toaster or refrigerator or your kid's TikTok, all these that are connected and digital, you really have trust that the other side is not abusing them. And as the world gets more digital and connected, China, I think, chose a very bad time to really lose the trust of a lot of its trading partners, not only the United States. And at the same time, we entered a world where microchips became the new oil. Microchips can only be made in a global supply chain of incredible trust between the parties. And I think China's really hurt itself there as well, beyond the fact that the U.S. is withholding its most advanced chips, but also just generally its ability to partner with other countries on these higher and higher technologies that require massive collaboration and therefore a lot of trust. This was a really bad time to breach trust with the world.
Tom Friedman, thanks so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Gotham.